Sorry guys, I did not mean to put something on your lap at the very last minute. It just worked out that way.
For all that. Somebody said that to me about a month ago. That's a good spot. I thought all that was isolated on that side. Which is okay. That's only $230 for 4 tests. That's pretty good. And they sent an actual includes the lab stuff.
Is it the same number? Okay. I just tried to get it to go back.
I thought it might be some
The key master.
mortuary things. They have that, stuff they put in the body.
That's the amount of
TikTok. That's the newest of the social media craze. I don't understand what it is, but I know a lot of people are on it now.
Well, I do know it's, it's in turmoil right now.
Yeah, well, they got all the concerns about it being a Chinese company, and Microsoft was going to buy it, and then they didn't.
Yeah, I think it's actually being sold to another company. It's a mining.
It's hard to believe that.
Oracle.
Yeah.
But that's what I saw that last weekend, and then I saw that maybe it's just a bid to manage their U.S. operations and not actually take over any part of their government ownership or their
I don't know the ins and outs about that. It's volatile right now, and I thought, they're indicating that it's a source to allow transfer of information to China.
That's the concern. It sounds like it's a valid one, although I don't understand how any of that works in terms of the ones and zeros. But
You have to get techie to even get close to it.
I was thinking the other day how as far as my level of knowledge, all this might
Never mind. No worries.
and outs of how it
I was going to show stuff, but I'll get it after you.
Well, I think they're the
I'm good. How are you?
Busy.
Never mind. I'm not even gonna ask.
What do you need?
Well, it's more of a personal favor. Anthony needs to interview somebody within the next week for a career choice, and he wants to go into law enforcement. So I didn't know if you were one of the guys.
Yeah, sure. We can
Okay,
do that.
I'll just have him email you, and you want
It opens up a different
you want to give it to
can of worms
one of the other guys. It's fine.
All right, we can do that.
What grade is he in?
He's a senior at U of L. So for his, I think it's for his career class that needs to like sit down with somebody that.
It sounds like a good job for Adam.
Yeah, it sounds like a good one for somebody other than you, but it's fine.
Let's tell him, send him an email.
Okay.
Let's tell him my son.
I hadn't heard no more
Got
from
speaking with Katie yesterday. She said, Stephen,
I know we
home.
pulled plats and looked at it.
Yeah, because you were supposed to, I never heard that from him.
Let me look. I thought,
Oh yeah.
He said he pulled up, they already have my grand looked at. He looked at it, y'all good? Yeah, I said, I'm leaving.
yeah, let me,
It's
Still ongoing drama with that. He's a mess.
let me get you an answer on it.
This dude is like, yeah.
What's up, man?
Yeah, there's ongoing drama with that. My vacation can't go to
Okay, I think we're about ready. Good to go.
Then I've got another question for you.
All right, I'll call to order the Charlestown Board of Public Works meeting for September 16th, 2020. It's 9 a.m. We will begin by all rising, and please join in unison for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We do roll call. Jim Adams.
Here.
David Reed.
Here.
Mayor Hodges is here as the chair. We are joined by Deputy Clerk Treasurer Nancy Rogers and City Attorney Mickey Weber. We'll begin. Everybody's been provided a copy of the agenda. Ask for a motion to approve that agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Motion made by Jim Adams, seconded by David Reed. I think there's only one issue that I think Mickey Weber has a policy that he wanted to add in his when he discusses something on the internal social and digital media policy. So any questions about that addition? All right, All in favor of approving the agenda with that addition, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. We have some standing business. I entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our prior meeting on September 2nd.
I'm gonna make the motion.
Motion made by David Reed,
Second.
seconded by Jim Adams. Any changes, additions, or questions about the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Minutes are passed. We also have our current claims. I'll entertain a motion to approve those as provided.
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by David Reed,
Second.
seconded by Jim Adams. Questions about the claims? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carries unanimously. And then our payroll allowance docket from August 30th to September 13th. Entertain a motion to approve that docket.
Make that motion.
Motion made by David Reed,
Second.
seconded by Jim Adams. Any questions about that, gentlemen? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you. Public comment period. Do we have anybody here for public comment? I don't think anybody's signed up. Okay. Okay, we have no old business, just new business. Wastewater operator contract bids. We put out a request for bids for a Class 3 operator to serve on a contract basis just for the remainder of the year as we do a more long-term solution down the road. So our prior operator resigned and we need to get a licensed operator in. So I reached out to 3 companies. One was Utility Management and Construction, and they chose not to submit a bid. We also reached out to Midwest Engineering. They chose not to submit a bid. And so we have 2 bids that's been presented before you. The J. Thompson bid and then the Brady Technical Services. They're very different bids, as you can see.
Yep.
So Jay Thompson is currently a Class 3 operator. Indiana law, he works for the city of Madison currently, but Indiana law does allow for, and I've double checked this with our attorney, does allow for an operator to take on 2 cities, like this. And so he has a proposal that he will commit up to 20 hours a week at $750 a week to virtually review the reports and everything that our guys are pulling. Paul and Scott, our current staff members there, do all the testing, the lift station, everything. And so they'll basically send him the documents for him to review. And then he will come in on the weekends on Saturday and Sunday physically to provide additional 3 to 4 hours a day on those days to help them, direct them, guide them in some of those things. Any additional work over the 20 hours, if needed, would be at $56.25 each. So that was his proposal. And then the Brady Technical Services is offering full-time service through the end of December and guidance for, the crew that is working there, but the compensation is quite more significant. So the total for that period from October 1st to December 31st on this bid would be $74,735. So I would love to hear. You've also both received a copy of the operational report that was done by Midwest Environmental. So I would love to hear your thoughts on these bids for the contract operator.
Well, we think that since we just are looking for more or less a stopgap to get us through the 3 months, that going the expensive route would not be prudent. So that would be my recommendation as far as are you looking for comments about the report? Because that's extensive. So I don't know if that's something we really want to lay out much on today, or.
We don't have to. I wanted to put it in your hands so that you had time to review it so you know the status of the system. Our city engineers, Jacoby Tinson Lands, are also working on a document that helps look at the opportunities for improvement of the facility. So the different types of whether we repair what we have, whether we expand, whether we build new, all those types of. They're compiling that report now, and I have shared this operational review with them as well, and they participated in a debriefing in person with the crew from Midwest before they left. So that will help inform that study as well. If you want to wait until we get both of those studies, you know, we can have that conversation together, but I wanted the board to have that document. We're looking at about 15 weeks if you want the cost comparison. So the $750 a week, well, if my calculator work.
11,000 and change.
Yeah, so about 11,250 versus the 74,000 for full-time. And, you know, the operational report tells us that our senior operator, or, you know, our senior staff member there has a good, strong grasp and control of the lab. He runs a very good lab. The guys from Midwest Environmental told me that in person, that they think that he does a fantastic job running that lab. And so we also have contractors who can come in and help us in the event of a pump failure or any kind of emergency situation. We have options to bid that out. There are several companies that can help us with that. And then, of course, we have our on-call Jacoby Teams and Lands that can help with any situations that would come up as an emergency. This is to get us in compliance, keep us in compliance with IDEM and making sure that we have a licensed operator reviewing all of the required testing and operations of the plant.
So bottom line, this is 11,000 some change, but that's not totally an expense that we weren't going to incur anyhow because we had an employee.
Right, so the cost difference, if we had the full-time position filled at the current salary ordinance rate, including insurance and perf and all of those benefits, for the remainder of the year, you're looking at about a $25,000 cost. So the 11,000 would actually be a savings. Of course, you're not getting full-time hours, but you're still getting all of it, all that is required for us to stay in compliance with IDEM until we get a more long-term solution in place.
Right.
I didn't want to rush hiring a licensed operator. That's something that you want to do as a nice, long interview process and make sure you get a good, strong person in. So that's why I thought it would be better to kind of propose doing these last few months on the contract before we dive down that road of getting a full-time person.
So with the stopgap plan, I guess, obviously we're going to be in compliance,
yes,
which is the most important thing. Mm-hmm. No change in output or results or bill between either way you go and our current employees. We're going to be working towards improving the overall wastewater operations. So
each of the people that came out to do the bid toured the facility with me and went to the larger of our two lift stations, the Highway 62 lift station and the Spring Street lift station. And I was joined by Michael Harris from JTL during that so that he can answer any of the questions that came up from an engineering standpoint. And so both of these bids are fully aware of the status of our system. We talked through, I did not have the full report yet, but I talked through some of the bigger challenges that were identified in this operational report with them. And both of them were comfortable beginning to initiate some of those immediate updates and changes that we can do for both cost saving and for efficiency in managing the plant. So it is a long-term repair effort, right? This isn't something where the plant is obviously in some state of disrepair over the length of it's been there since 2000, so it's an old plant. We knew coming into it January that we were going to have to make some improvements. So those are long-term improvements. What this allows us to do is take this operational report, have a highly qualified operator overseeing us in a short term to begin to implement some of those easy solutions, like some of the cleaning things that they recommended in filters and that kind of stuff. It should start us on an immediate path to savings so that we can then hire the best person for the job without being in a hurry.
And there's no conflict of interest if we decide on the gentleman from Madison? I
will verify, I had asked him that. Yeah, I had asked him that and there was no, he knew coming into it that, and like I said, we had verified legally that it is allowed for him to supervise 2 plants as long as there's no decline in the status of our testing and all that, we remain in compliance, everything is fine. And so what I'll be asking the board to do, if that's your choice, if that's the one that we want to do, is you'll authorize me to enter a contract with him under Mickey Weber, under our city attorney's guidance there, to make sure, and that's one of the things that we'll do is make sure that we clear up any potential conflicts.
Where are we with, this will get us through the end of the year, where are we with permanent position? I mean, are we advertising for that yet?
I've not advertised yet, so there are several options that our engineering team is looking at for how we want to move forward, and we're considering every possible option with that. So I said cast the net wide,
Okay,
basically.
that's fine.
And so,
Just want to make sure that we're not, at the end of the year, trying to add this for another 3 months. I would like.
I fully anticipate that within about a month, we will have, probably less than a month, we will have the full report from JTL on the different breakdown of what we could, do with our plant. We'll be able to have that full discussion, and then we should be able to make a decision about putting out a call for that job before the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That way we have plenty of time to take in
Yeah, with
applications.
the holidays
interview.
and everything,
Yeah.
they get sidetracked and, I'll think about that job next year.
Sure, sure.
Just wanted to be on top of it.
Sure. Well, even if we ended up doing a 1-year contract for next year, it still gives us more time to explore those options. But this, we have 30 days basically from the time an operator resigns. We have 30 days to notify IDEM of who the replacement operator is going to be of record.
Okay.
And so that's why I've said let's just focus on these few months and get through the end of the year. That gives us some time to make those longer term decisions.
Okay.
So do we have a motion to accept
I make the motion to accept, and I forgot his name.
Jay Thompson, and to authorize me to enter a contract with him?
Okay, all right, I make that motion.
Motion on the table to accept the Jay Thompson bid, and authorize the mayor to sign off on that contract has been made by David Reed,
Second?
seconded by Jim Adams. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. All right, and then the thing that we added to the agenda was this internal social and digital media policy. Mickey, did you want to address that?
I would if it's all right. And again, I apologize for putting this in front of you at the last minute. This is actually something we've been talking about since back in January. It addresses a couple of different issues. It is specifically internal, and it applies only to employees or affiliates or associates of the city, and tries to put in some regulations and some guidance about what your social media activity can and should be, both in conjunction with your employment and also in your private life, to the extent that people are holding themselves out to be representatives or employees of the city in their private lives. It's not particularly onerous. It simply says don't engage in anything that might be harassment or bullying or otherwise unacceptable. Don't disclose any private or confidential information that would be prevented or prohibited by law, and it directs individuals not to represent themselves as speaking on behalf of the city unless authorized to do so. It's in line with the social media policies from several other municipalities we've looked at. It's in line with what appears to be the scholarship on the issue in terms of what these policies are intended to address and what they can address without overstepping. We don't want to micromanage people's personal lives, and obviously a lot of people are active on social media and should feel free to continue to do so, but there have to be some guidelines about what you can and can't do in the context of your employment or association or affiliation with the city. And so, and again, I understand you haven't had a great deal of time to go over it and absorb it. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and would appreciate it if you'd consider it today, understanding that you haven't had a great deal of time to go through it.
Yeah, I haven't had, kind of breezed through it. Just a couple of things that come to mind, and it's somewhat related, but not really to the policy, but does the city sponsor cell phones?
There are some cell phones that are provided to employees if they need them in the context of their employment.
Okay.
There is a provision that doesn't address the equipment so much as it asks people not to attach their private email with their or rather their work email with their private social media. If you mention that, it wouldn't be a bad, we don't want to, if somebody's taking a cell phone, for instance, and using it, it's appropriate that they use that for personal and business purposes. We don't want to require everybody that needs to be supplied a cell phone have 2 different devices.
Right.
But this would require a separation of work email from private email and social media activity. Now, I don't think that we want to, well, let me rephrase that. I haven't suggested that you go so far as to say people can't access their personal social media from a city-supplied device. But if they do so, this policy would prohibit them from doing it in a way that's related to their email address or their city employment, to keep those 2 domains separate.
I just know there's been a flurry of social media back and forth lately on some issues, and it just gets to the point where we do have to control or limit or do something to the situation rather than just allow it to provoke and
well,
continue.
and that's where I think this threads the needle, because obviously we don't want to interfere with anybody's constitutional right to express themselves about a question of public interest, and we wouldn't try to, and even if we did, it wouldn't be successful.
Right.
And that's the right thing. But there has to be some distinction between what you're saying as John Doe, a private individual, and John Doe, a city employee or official, so that the city can exercise some degree of control over what it puts out into the world as being a city-sponsored communication as opposed to that of a private individual.
It looks like, Mickey, this does, I mean, it's only 2 pages, so it doesn't take that long to read through it, but it looks like it does a couple of things. One, that it protects our branding, so it protects the city's branding, logos, you know, our identity from that, so it keeps people from it keeps people affiliated with the city from creating their own social media blogs or whatever that are not managed through our media department. So it has that level of protection. It also relieves our employees and affiliates from the responsibility of answering things on behalf of the city. Those answers, when someone asks or engages with a question on the city's social media pages, that it's actually through the media department that those are answered. It keeps, you know, our affiliates from feeling like they have to, our employees from feeling like they have to step in. Even if they know the answer, they can contact the media director and let the media director do it on behalf of the city. That it protects against any kind of harassment that might happen, and that it keeps our social media, the city's social media, from being compromised by any personal account that could affect it in any way. So it seems pretty straightforward.
It also checks a box in terms of public records. This is
Right.
something that probably statutorily required anyway, but it's good to be explicit about it. To the extent that the communications come from the city, and it should only come from the city, those become public records and need to be preserved as such and made accessible, even if they get taken down or amended. And that's an important function. I mean, anything that the city puts out officially ought to be preserved and made available to the public. And so this checks that box as well.
Okay.
Any other questions? I'm not opposed to entertaining a motion to approve this today. It's relatively short.
Essentially sets professional standards for employees, ethical standards, and
Internal controls.
yes, internal controls.
And Mickey, if I may, to David's point, we do have an external social media policy that's available on our online and on our social media platforms that kind of lays out some of those things that you were talking about in terms of, when the dialogue becomes heated and then it becomes threatening, or, there are parameters there that allow us to, protect freedom of speech and the rights to express those things. But when a line is crossed, we can.
Well, and that's where we're all for freedom of speech, but we're not obligated to host something once
Right.
it's become laden with offense profanity or threats or anything that crosses a line of basic decency. But that is an important policy, and this applies those standards more broadly in some ways to city employees, tells the employees and affiliates that they're expected to comport themselves in a way that's in line with the law and with some basic standards of decency. Not that and that's not a problem that we're seeking to address in any specific instance right now. It's just a general good rule of the road to have, to say, don't go out and say, here I am, I represent the city of Charlestown, and I'm gonna make this violent threat or this profane remark or post some nudity on somebody's TikTok, whatever that might be.
Right.
So this is not necessarily only to the city's social media page. It's also it's city employees on their own personal.
It is, but the standards are not the same. It draws a clear distinction. It says, don't do things that break the law on social media, whether you are, if you're identifiable as an employee or affiliate of the city. Don't hold yourself out as a city employee and make statements that violate these terms. It doesn't say that you can't get on there as a person who's not identifiable as a city employee or affiliate and say whatever it is you might want. But it does say that if you're going to associate yourself in your social media activity, even outside of work hours, there are some limits about what you can and can't do. And fortunately, this is not a problem we've had to address with any specific employee or affiliate, but it's a good common sense rule to have in light of the fact that more and more people are engaging in their social lives online.
I think it's a good policy. I just, excuse me, I just would like to see a little less, and that's just my desire, a little less, I guess, hype online, but.
I don't think any policy is going to stop that.
That's a separate vote.
That's a separate vote, yeah. That's a separate
I see what this is in place for, and I agree with it, so.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve this policy?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by David Reed,
Second.
seconded by Jim Adams. Any other questions? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, I have nothing else on the agenda unless you guys have any questions for me or comments you want to make. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
All right,
I'll
Jim Adams
second.
makes the motion, David Reed seconds. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We'll see you next time. The meeting is adjourned.
Tell me, I'm gonna look at Hillside and drive back to Quality.
You want me to meet you on the phone?
I just want to drive by and take pictures.
Morning. Question on a personal. Yeah, like I said, I got to, is there a law?